No trades this week so far. Well, no trades this week because I'm not about to. Oh, forgot to float at the top. Hold on. Alrighty, enough of that. Now let's get into trade recap for the day. Alrighty. Yeah, look at this. Whoa. I can move my face cam around. Alright, trade recap for the day. Well, and this entire week where you're doing a weekly recap. So, for today, we absolutely just went down pre-market and then pretty much went right back up before market open. And I was mainly looking at the 15-minute on this time because this is a 15-minute fair value gap. And basically, I was kind of saying, okay, well, if we inverse this gap, that is good. That's giving us some pretty bullish confluence. And we did in 2 candles. We ended up inversing this gap before market open. So overall, that gave me kind of confluence that we were going to have our consolidation and then manipulation and extension. And well, obviously we did. So that was kind of my bias for the day. We had pretty much nothing to the downside that made sense to target. I mean, this is how market open was literally this. So it's like, what are we going to target to the downside? These lows, you know what I mean? We didn't have anything to the downside. So if I was going to take a trade, it was going to be a bullish favored trade. And overall, I definitely could have taken a trade today. But price action in December, first of all, it has been garbage so far, and at least for me. So I want to be patient with it. And overall, I think that's a good thing to do because I don't want to rush into stuff and I don't want to, do things that I shouldn't do. So, again, if we look at what we did, my kind of bias for the day, if I was going to take a trade, was going to be, okay, we need to see some like big old retracements, something like that, and then some confluence out of it to target these highs. And these were higher time frame hourly highs. These right over here. So that was kind of my bias for that. And obviously it ended up playing out, but did I take a trade? No, I did not. And I can kind of explain why in just a second. So, yeah, I would say going through this, we had our highs right up here. And ES was lagging behind NASDAQ. And NASDAQ actually swept out these highs on this first move, like right when market opened. It just took out all this lower resistance liquidity and then swept out those highs. But this is not an SMT. This is not a high time from SMT. We're not going to have a couple tick move be the result of a high time from SMT. And, ES wasn't even that far behind it. So my bias going into that was, okay, we swept these out. We're almost guaranteed to sweep them out on ES now because we're not going to make an SMT off of that. And we also have this market structure telling us that we want to have an extension. So that was kind of my bias. And then I just marked out this fair value gap. That fair value gap got respected. And honestly, that didn't give me much confluence. Like in the moment, I just didn't really pay attention to this much, which I should have. And, it's something that I'm definitely going to learn from. We also had this fair value gap here and then this fair value gap. And at 8:46, we closed. We had a breaker structure on ES, and this is exactly where I would have entered. Would have been on this breaker structure, and then that we also inverse this little tiny gap here, and at the same time we inverse this gap on NASDAQ. So definitely could have had an entry. I would say the thing is I was definitely hesitant in entering on this. Well, I actually did try to enter on it on Trade Locker, but for some reason I had an error. I don't know why, but I just kind of took that as a sign to say, all right, maybe we shouldn't be taking this trade. But yeah, this would have been the trade. It would have been a 1 to 1.5 risk reward, and it overall would have played out. So I think learning from this, I can definitely trust myself more. I think I need to trust myself more, but still use that market intuition and still have the power to just say, no, I don't need to trade. This is crappy price action or something like that. And I'll kind of go over that because we had crappy price action earlier this week. I mean, look at this. We've been in a range this entire month, or sorry, this entire week. Like, I mean, we have not left this consolidation period. So that's kind of why I haven't taken any trades this week. But yeah, I'm excited to see what next week brings, obviously. But yeah, no trades today. Definitely could have taken one off this. Overall, it went. I pretty much was saying exactly what was going to happen, which is honestly a big part of the game. You know what I mean? Is understanding what's going to happen and predicting that, I guess. And I didn't act on it, but overall, I know that I I explained why this stuff was happening in my head, and I did that. You know what I mean? I said, all right, we want some retracement or a retracement, and then we want some bullish confluence out of that and a fair value gap to be inverse as well. And I saw that, but I didn't act on it. So we'll see what next week brings. But yeah, overall, this week has been pretty garbage. Yesterday, I know we see this retracement down to these lows. Yeah, well, when we were making this retracement, Nasdaq already had swept up those lows, so nothing on Thursday. And then if we look on Wednesday, we just had this massive gap that we were just playing in the entirety of like market open until like 11, 12 almost. So nothing there. There really is not anything that we could have traded on Tuesday. The only thing would have been a sweep of these up to these highs, but overall, it's not something that I really want to trade. And it also would have been a like horrible risk to reward as well. I think it was only like it was like a 1-to-1, but I think it might have been not. I think it was maybe like a 1 to 1.8. I don't know. Overall, not very good. Monday, we definitely had a potential trade. We ended up making an SMT right here, a bullish SMT off of these lows, and we got super close to these highs on both indexes right off the market open. So that's kind of indication for me just to say, all right, there's a high probability that we sweep those out. And yeah, overall we had our consolidation, and then this would have been manipulation and extension. But overall, I wasn't super duper confident in this trade, and it would have had to been taken on ES to respect that SMT, and then I would have had to enter off of this big old candle right here, and that would have been my entry, and then I would have had to put stops there and just target a 1-to-1, and that this would have been my trade. It would have just been a 1-to-1 like this. But yeah, overall, no trades for the week. I'm excited to see what next week brings, and overall, I'm very content. I'm content with my performance this week. I think I learned a lot, and I can want to just continue to journal no matter what I did, no matter if I didn't take a trade or if I did take a trade. I want to journal every single day, and I think that'll help me. But yeah, overall, I think I did a decent job on understanding kind of what market did this week. And yeah, we were in a range, so not super inclined to trade. Today, I definitely could have taken a trade up to these highs, but I didn't. And nothing I can do about that. So yeah, overall, I'm content with today. And yeah, we'll see what next week brings.